What if the man next door was watching your child, waiting to strike? In the late 80s, Westley Allan Dodd stalked playgrounds and stole innocent lives in ways so disturbing they shocked even hardened detectives. He wasn't just a killer, he was a predator who turned his darkest fantasies into reality and left a town paralyzed with fear. This is the true story of one of America's most horrifying child murderers and how his unspeakable crimes changed execution laws forever. In the late 1980s, Vancouver, Washington was the kind of place where families thrived. Tree-lined streets, front porch swings, children playing until twilight. A quiet suburb where neighbors chatted across picket fences, and no one imagined evil lurking so close. Among those familiar faces was Westley Allan Dodd, a shy, polite man in his late 20s. He held ordinary jobs, lived in an unremarkable apartment building near parks and schools, and smiled politely at anyone passing. But behind that undistinguished facade lay a series of troubling behaviors that the town chose to ignore. Dodd was arrested repeatedly for indecent exposure, flashing himself at parks, pools, and in schoolyards. His first arrest came as early as age 13, but he faced little consequence beyond probation and counseling recommendations. At 20, he was discharged from the Navy after being caught molesting boys living on the submarine base. Again, penalties were minimal. In 1987, Portland police documented another incident. A young boy reported efforts by Dodd to lure him into an empty building off Sacagawea school grounds. Again, prosecutors offered probation and psychiatric treatment, no prison time. Each time the warning signs came and were dismissed. Dodd continued to blend into everyday life, driving trucks, stocking shelves, fixing charity trucks, always near children, always unnoticed. By autumn 1989, Dodd chose Vancouver's David Douglas Park, a lush, wooded area with secluded trails, as his hideout, a place of vibrant community life by day and horrifying danger by night. To Vancouver's residents, it remained a peaceful suburb, but the truth was more chilling. While parents felt safe letting their children play, a predator watched, unnoticed and unchallenged, growing more daring by the day. In the hush of that small town, Dodd's deviance simmered quietly. With every ignored report, with every brush with the law, his fantasies edged closer to horrific reality, and Vancouver, unknowingly, stood on the brink of its worst nightmare. Before the headlines, before the manhunt, and before the confessions that made seasoned detectives sick to their stomachs, Westley Allan Dodd was just a boy, born into an ordinary home that hid extraordinary darkness. Dodd entered the world in July 1961 in Toppenish, Washington, the eldest of 3 children. His family was working class, not rich, not desperately poor. To neighbors, they were unremarkable, a father who worked hard, a mother who kept house, and children who seemed quiet and shy. But inside that house, something was missing: warmth. Dodd would later say he never remembered a hug, never heard "I love you" from his parents. He was a lonely boy, small for his age, picked on at school, and left to his own thoughts for hours at a time. Those thoughts quickly turned dark. By age 9, an age when most children dream of toys and adventure, Wesley's mind was already slipping into obsession. He would watch his younger cousins undress, peeking through cracked doors, holding his breath so he wouldn't get caught. At 12, he graduated from watching to doing. He began to expose himself to neighborhood kids. He'd hide behind trees near the schoolyard and step out just long enough for children to see him, then run home before anyone could stop him. He was caught more than once. Teachers reported strange behavior, stares that lingered too long on children half his age. Parents whispered about the boy who seemed to hover near playground fences. But every time an adult confronted him, Dodd apologized, promised to stop, and was sent home with little more than a lecture. His teenage years were a quiet record of missed warnings. He got into trouble at 16 for trying to lure a young boy into the bushes. He was arrested for indecent exposure near a local swimming pool. But the charges never stuck. The police chalked it up to teenage curiosity or awkward growing pains. Counseling was offered, probation handed down, but Dodd's mind kept drifting back to fantasies of control, of power over the most vulnerable. When he turned 20, he joined the Navy, a chance to start fresh, far from the suspicious eyes of his hometown. But old habits don't die when they're fed in secret. Stationed in Idaho, Dodd was soon caught again, this time molesting young boys who lived on the naval base. His punishment? A dishonorable discharge and a bus ticket home. By then, the red flags were impossible to ignore. But they were. He babysat for families who never knew his record. He worked jobs that put him near parks, pools, and schoolyards. Each time he was caught, the consequences were a slap on the wrist. He told therapists he couldn't control himself, that the urges were getting stronger. But still, no one stopped him. For years, he fantasized about doing more, about trapping children, hurting them, killing them. He wrote it all down in a private diary, sketches and plans for building cages, tying knots, choosing remote spots to hide what he'd done. And through it all, the small towns of Washington slept easy, unaware that the quiet man who smiled politely at the corner store was planning to do something that would change everything forever. By the autumn of 1989, Westley Allan Dodd's distorted desires were no longer confined to private fantasies. They were ready to redefine horror in real life. He moved to Vancouver, Washington, and fixed his gaze on David Douglas Park, a playground thick with trees, ideal for a predator lying in wait. Dodd scouted the trails, marking them in his diary. He wrote, "David Douglas Park would be a good place for rape and murder or kidnap. Rape and murder, a good hunting ground." His words, cold and clinical, echoed the transformation of fantasy into a blueprint for terror. On September 4th, 1989, the nightmare became real. Dodd spotted brothers Cole and William Neer, ages 11 and 10, near the playground. He asked to help with their bikes. They trusted him. In the wooded seclusion, he bound them with shoelaces and stabbed them with a fillet knife. Cole died at the scene. William, gravely injured, later passed away at the hospital. He wasn't finished. Dodd began keeping trophies, newspaper clippings, photographs, Polaroids, each a testament to his brutality. He documented every detail, every step, like a hunter cataloging a kill. On October 29th, he struck again, this time in Portland at Richmond Elementary. He coaxed 4-year-old Lee Aselli with promises of snacks and safe rides. The boy followed him to Dodd's apartment. Dodd tied Lee to his bed, molested him, and took Polaroids, images meant for a twisted keepsake. In his diary, he recorded, "We'll probably wait until morning to kill him. That way his body will still be fairly fresh for experiments after work." At dawn, he strangled Lee, revived him twice, then ended him. He hanged the child in his closet, photographing the final scene. He burned Lee's clothes, except the boy's Ghostbusters underwear, which he kept. But the most horrifying details lay in his own words. In the scrapbook of death, Dodd wrote, "Incident 3 will die maybe this way. I can clearly see his face and eyes now. Electrocution also a good means for quick death." He sketched torture devices. He planned future murders, describing them in chilling detail. He even built a homemade torture rack, ready to trap the next unsuspecting child. What began as stalking became a symphony of evil, methodical, deliberate, escalating. Dodd didn't just kill, he documented, he photographed, he planned, and with each attack, he edged closer to the abyss of unspeakable horror. By late 1989, investigators had a grim pattern. 3 young boys, Cole Neer, William Neer, and Lee Aselli, each vanished after a normal summer day, only to be found brutally murdered. Detectives began connecting threads, shared parks, similar tactics, the same warped signature. An FBI behavior profiler and local detectives crafted an unsettling portrait. A man with access to children's environments. Someone bold enough to strike during daylight. But Westley Allan Dodd wasn't careful. After the killings, he made a bold attempt to abduct again, in a movie theater. On November 13th, 1989, Dodd grabbed 6-year-old James Kirk in the New Liberty Theater restroom in Camas, Washington. James screamed. Theater staff chased them out. Outside, Dodd stumbled as his car failed. Then William Ray Graves, a bystander, rushed in, wrestled Dodd to the ground, and held him until police arrived. A terrified child, brave staff, and a quick-thinking passerby gave authorities the break they needed. This near miss turned into his capture. At the Camas police station, Detectives C.W. Jensen and Dave Trimble began interrogation. In Dodd's apartment, they found a homemade torture rack, Lee Aselli's underwear in a briefcase, photos, newspaper clippings, and his own handwritten diary, a meticulous confession. Faced with unmissable proof, photos, physical trophies, and chilling diary entries, Dodd confessed to the murders of the Near brothers and Lee Aselli. He also admitted his aborted theater attempt. In a single moment of collapse, the predator became prey, his own evidence ensnaring him, his own greed for control becoming his downfall. The hunt was over. Justice had its man. In July 1990, Westley Allan Dodd appeared before the Clark County Superior Court. He pleaded guilty to the abduction, molestation, and murders of 3 young boys. Yet he went further, demanding the death penalty himself, insisting that only his execution would protect children from his violent impulses. What set his case so chillingly apart was his request for an execution method as dark as his crimes. Washington state law offered lethal injection or hanging. Dodd chose the noose. In December 1992, despite appeals from death penalty opponents and widespread debate over its cruelty, the Washington Supreme Court allowed it. On January 5, 1993, just after midnight, Westley Allan Dodd became the first person in the United States to be legally hanged since 1965. His execution was quick and clinical. Witnesses described no dramatic moment, only silence, a calm void where a life once spread fear across generations. As the noose tightened around his neck, Dodd spoke his final words. "I was once asked if there was any way sex offenders could be stopped. I said no. I was wrong. I found peace in the Lord. Look to the Lord, and you will find peace." He died at 12:09 a.m., ending a life of terror. His request for hanging, his refusal of appeals, his calm acceptance shocked a nation still grappling with the boundaries of justice and the depths of human evil. The victims of Westley Allan Dodd, Cole Near, William Near, Lee Aselli, left behind grieving families that would never recover from a single moment of horror. Their loved ones became the quiet victims of a community forever changed. In the wake of the killings, parents in Vancouver and Portland held village councils, school meetings, and late-night vigils. David Douglas Park's swings hung unused. Front doors stayed locked. Playdates were supervised by groups of adults. A generation of children grew up under the shadow of Dodd's crimes, even if they never knew his name. Washington state passed sweeping reforms, indefinite civil commitment for sexually violent predators, new laws mandating harsher sentences, improved background checks, and a network of safety closures in schools and parks. But no amount of legislation could erase the fear. Today, child protection advocates credit Dodd's case as a turning point, the moment when society finally took child predators seriously. The Reser Hadela Road group when passing well views that were why time when a pince in the tame was going. That his name be known, but it is the names of his young victims that deserve to be remembered. Let Cole, William, and Lee be remembered as they were, children in play, not just victims of terror. This story reminds us that evil can hide in plain sight, behind friendly smiles, quiet routines, trusted neighbors. But vigilance, community, and compassion are stronger. If this story moved you, share it. Comment your thoughts. Let's keep the conversation going about protecting the vulnerable and staying alert. And if you'd like more true crime documentaries that shine light into darkness, subscribe now, because we must never ignore the shadows.